Is it possible you are making one or more of the common mistakes I see nonfiction authors make simply because you don't know what you don't know? Well, I'm Ann Croker, and if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. If you're a regular, welcome back. Today, you've joined hundreds of established and emerging writers who are discovering ways to reach their writing goals and have fun by being more curious, creative, and productive. This is the Ann Croker Writing Coach Podcast, episode 276, 4 mistakes I see nonfiction authors make and how to fix them. One time a client came to me with an idea for a nonfiction book. She thought she would just write the manuscript and send it off to the publishing house. What she didn't realize is she was working a few steps ahead. Thankfully, she came to me early enough in the process that we were able to discuss the steps that she needed to take to pursue traditional publishing. This allowed her to sidestep a lot of the mistakes that would have slowed her down. Even though she didn't need to write the entire manuscript before taking her next steps, her instinct to do so was to be commended. After all, how is she supposed to know about the ins and outs of publishing if she's never been in it? Let's explore and learn how to avoid these common mistakes that nonfiction authors make when they are starting to write their very first book. Mistake number 1, writing without a plan. A common mistake, and perhaps the most common mistake I see writers make, is setting off to write their book without a plan. In doing so, they're trying to write their book without any kind of plan or structure. Often within the first couple of chapters, they realize the magnitude of this project and what they've gotten themselves into. Overwhelm sets in and derails that initial excitement that they had. Without a defined plan or structure, ideas tend to sprawl and lack any kind of cohesion. The missing element? A book proposal. It's a necessary business document used in traditional publishing. But for you and I, it serves as a plan to make your nonfiction book a reality. In a book proposal, writers define a clear thesis and then outline the central argument that's going to be supported throughout the book. Writers outline the book chapter by chapter, creating a framework that ensures they're crafting a message they want to share with their reader. A book proposal also includes key elements that force you to think through details such as the book's purpose, its special features, and its ideal reader. All of these add to your plan and guide your research and writing. So writing without a plan is the first big mistake. Creating a plan is how you solve it. Mistake number 2 that I see is writing before deciding on a publishing path. Before developing your manuscript, be sure to stop, pause, decide if you're going to pursue self-publishing or traditional publishing. If you know you want to go the traditional path, you will need that book proposal, which comes with sample chapters, typically about 3 for a first-time author. These chapters serve as prototypes, guiding the content and flow for the rest of the book. While not all of the subsequent chapters need to mirror the initial ones you turn in with your book proposal, they still set the foundation. If self-publishing is your goal, you will need to write the entire manuscript, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't create a book proposal. Self-published authors often find it useful to move through all the different elements of the book proposal. When you know things like the categories that your book is going to fall into, is going to really help you when you set up your book in, for example, Amazon KDP. And it's going to give you that clarity of the content and what's going in your book. And for memoir specifically, you usually do need to write the entire manuscript and have a book proposal if you're pursuing traditional publishing, and it's also recommended if you're pursuing self-publishing. So which publishing path do you think you'll pursue? Try to lock that in before you start writing your book, and then you will avoid mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is overthinking your book and then not writing anything at all. Overthinking a book to the point of paralysis is another huge problem I see with writers. Some writers fear that they're not going to be able to put everything they want to say in their book, and then other writers fear that their work has already been said by somebody else and there's no reason to write their book. Either situation can shut a writer down before they even begin. If you find yourself there, go back to that first mistake and solution and craft yourself a plan. Create a framework for your book that addresses your readers' needs and offers the transformation they crave. Once you've done the hard work of developing a book proposal, determining the book's purpose and how it's going to serve its readers, the actual writing is not going to feel that complicated. Mapping out a book is like outlining, and it sets you up for success when you sit down to write. Of course, the next challenge after Outlining the book as a whole is determining how each chapter is going to flow. You could start each chapter with a compelling story or an engaging anecdote to get them engaged with your work. Stories are always a powerful way to connect with your reader. In the paragraphs and pages that follow that opening, you will support the claim of that chapter, which works together with the other chapters to support the central idea or the thesis of your book as a whole. All the ideas and examples you include will help your reader understand the main message or a big idea you're trying to convey. Then you can round it out with a conclusion that ties it all together and gets people ready for the next chapter. With a structure you can follow as you craft your manuscript, you will no longer feel shut down by overwhelm, and instead you'll find those words flowing onto the page. Mistake number 4, not asking for help soon enough. I see it all the time. Writers just wait too long to ask for help. First-time authors often work in a silo, not realizing they don't need to work completely alone. Take inspiration from Brené Brown. When she was a guest on Elizabeth Gilbert's podcast Magic Lessons, she talked about how she too thought she needed to write by herself as a lone wolf in a silo. And then she realized, no, she could bring together a team, so she did. She went to a lake house with several people that would provide collaborative input, and they did just that. They offered her input when the explanations fell short or the stories weren't strong enough. It enabled her to craft and refine her manuscript. In short, we write better together. So you don't have to write alone. Be sure to seek support and input early in the process. Talk through your ideas with a friend. Find beta readers. Build a team around you. By involving others, you're going to find much more enjoyment in the process. And I predict you'll find a more satisfying end result. So what do you think? Were you on the verge of committing one or more of those mistakes that nonfiction authors tend to make? Are you feeling a little stuck? You don't have to let those mistakes hold you back from writing your nonfiction book. Remember that key idea from the first solution. You need a plan to move forward and do the work. And remember that even with a plan, your manuscript will evolve as you move through revisions. So you can adjust your plan as new information comes across your desk. You can insert a new quote or a little piece of data that you come across or a story that you hear about. You can adjust a chapter's claim to reflect what you learn along the way. That client I mentioned, well, I sent her a webinar about book proposals that helps her understand the importance of that document and how the traditional publishing industry uses it in the decision-making process. Well, she watched it and we ended up working together on her book idea and created a book proposal for that project. She developed a strong idea that proved to have legs, as they say. She landed a contract with an agent and a publisher, and it all started with a plan. You can avoid all of these mistakes with your own nonfiction book project if you have a plan too. That's how it all starts. This episode is brought to you by that very same webinar, Craft Your Best Book Proposal. You can grab it yourself for free at anncroker.com/bestbookproposal. That's anncroker.com/bestbookproposal. And I'm Ann Croker, cheering you on as a writing coach in your ear, everywhere we may meet. At my website, here on this podcast, in your inbox, even in person. I'm always looking for ideas to share with you that will help you achieve your goals and have fun by being more curious, creative, and productive. Thanks for being here.